It's me, Lily, here to guide you through an eerie tale, a story shared by someone named Luke, who swears by the chilling events that happened in his family's new house. It's a story that begins innocently enough, like many do, but quickly takes a darker turn. It was 2018 when Luke's family moved to a new house. His mother had been eager to leave their grandmother's place, wanting to finally live in a home of their own. Luke's father quickly found a house they could rent. It seemed perfect at first. Spacious, with 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a large mango tree that offered shade on the hottest days. The air was cool, and everything seemed fine. But there was one strange thing. They were the 4th family to live there in a very short span of time. Neighbors had noticed this pattern. The tenants never stayed long. Luke's parents didn't think much of it. The house seemed to be in good shape, and nothing out of the ordinary had happened. For the first month, everything was peaceful. Then one afternoon, Luke's grandmother visited. She was a deeply superstitious woman, always following old traditions and warnings passed down through generations. As soon as she stepped into the house, she froze. Her hand flew to her chest, and she whispered, "There's a heaviness here. Something feels wrong." Luke's family exchanged glances, unsure of what she meant. His mother rolled her eyes, brushing it off as just another one of her superstitions. Grandma wandered around the house, muttering quietly to herself. When she reached the terrace, her eyes narrowed. She pointed to the front door and then to the terrace door, both perfectly aligned with each other. "This is bad," she said firmly. "Doors aligned like this bring bad luck." Luke's mother laughed softly. "That's just a silly old belief, Mom. Nothing bad has happened to us. The house is fine, really." Grandma wasn't convinced. "You should leave this place," she warned. "I feel it. Something dark is here, watching, waiting." Of course, no one listened. Why would they? To Luke's family, these were just stories, things that had no place in their modern life. They stayed in the house, going about their days as if everything was normal. But soon, small, unsettling things began to happen. Luke's mother worked as a vendor to help cover rent. One afternoon, while selling goods to a neighbor, the woman leaned in and whispered something strange. "You know, the families before you, they suffered. The first family, someone fell ill, gravely ill, and died in the hospital. The second family lost their jobs, and one of them became sick too. The third family, they fought all the time, screaming every night. No one stayed long in this house. They called it cursed." Luke's mother tried to brush it off, but the seed had been planted. She didn't tell anyone about what she'd heard, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Weeks passed without incident, but a growing sense of dread started to creep into their lives. Then one day, the call came. Luke's father had been in an accident at work. He survived, but barely. It was as if bad luck had suddenly wrapped itself around their family, suffocating them. The accident was the final straw for Luke's grandmother. She begged them to leave the house, insisting that the misfortune wasn't over. Still, Luke's mother refused to believe it. "Bad luck doesn't come from houses," she said stubbornly. "We create our own fate." But one night, something happened that Luke couldn't ignore. As he was sweeping the floor, he saw it. A man standing by the back door. He was wearing white, and he didn't move. Luke blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. But when he looked again, the figure had vanished. His heart pounded in his chest. But one night, something happened that Luke couldn't ignore. As he was sweeping the floor, he saw it. A man standing by the back door. He was wearing white, and he didn't move. Luke blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. But when he looked again, the figure had vanished. His heart pounded in his chest. He didn't say anything to his mother, knowing she wouldn't believe him. But he couldn't shake the feeling of cold dread that washed over him. A few weeks later, his father saw the same figure, standing in the exact same place. This time, Luke told him what he'd seen. His father went pale, shocked that they had both witnessed the same thing. But when they told Luke's mother, she just laughed it off, accusing them of letting their imaginations run wild. The unease continued to build. Every shadow felt darker, every sound sharper. And then, the worst happened. Luke's mother became pregnant, but she lost the baby. The grief was unbearable, but the tragedy didn't stop there. She became pregnant again shortly after, and again she lost the child. This time, Luke's mother began to question everything. Maybe the house really was cursed. Maybe there was something malevolent there, something they couldn't see but could feel. Finally, after 2 years of bad luck and tragedy, they decided to leave. They found an apartment, small and expensive, but far away from the house. After they moved, things slowly returned to normal, but the memories of that house lingered, haunting them. It wasn't just the tragedies or the strange figure that Luke and his father had seen. It was the lingering feeling that something had been watching them, waiting to strike. Even now, as I retell this story, a shiver runs down my spine. There are places in this world that hold darkness within them, houses where the walls whisper secrets, where shadows move in ways they shouldn't. There are places in this world that hold darkness within them, houses where the walls whisper secrets, where shadows move in ways they shouldn't. Maybe Luke's family was just unlucky, or maybe, just maybe, the house itself had claimed its victims, one by one. And so I ask you, would you dare stay in such a place? It all started in 2018 when my family moved into a new house. My mother had long wished for us to have our own place, as we had been staying at my grandmother's. My father wasted no time finding a house for rent. The place seemed fine, newly built and spacious, with 2 bedrooms and a bathroom inside. The kitchen was roomy, and the living area was large enough for a family like ours. A tall mango tree stood in the backyard, providing cool shade. When we moved in, the landlord casually mentioned that we were the 4th family to live there. The other tenants had moved out quickly, but no one ever said why. My mother didn't think much of it. The house was decent, and we hadn't experienced anything unusual. So we carried on with our daily routines, not giving the landlord's words a second thought. My grandmother, however, was deeply superstitious. She came to visit us one afternoon, and the moment she stepped inside, she paused, clutching her chest. Her face tightened, and she said she felt a heavy weight in the house. My mother brushed it off, rolling her eyes. "It's nothing, just an old woman's imagination," she said. But that wasn't the only thing that bothered my grandmother. She noticed something else. something that would spark a chain of events none of us could have predicted. The doors. The front door and the terrace door were directly opposite each other. My grandmother gasped, claiming that this alignment was bad luck. She urged us to leave the house. Her voice was shaky, her eyes filled with concern. "There's something wrong here. You need to move out." "I can feel it in my bones," she insisted. Again, my mother dismissed it. "Nothing bad has happened," she said, "and we're saving money by staying here." My father agreed with her and we stayed. Months passed and we tried to live normally. My mother set up a small business selling rice and snacks just to help cover the rent. One day she struck up a conversation with one of our neighbors. That's when the whispers about the house started. The first family who lived here? One of them had gotten sick, so sick that they never recovered. They had died in the hospital. The second family? They had lost their jobs, fell ill, and one by one, they passed away. The third family didn't fare much better. They argued incessantly, fights erupting day and night, until they too left the house for good. My mother heard all of this, but she still refused to believe the house had anything to do with it. "We make our own luck," she would say, brushing off any connection between the house and its former residents' misfortunes. But things would change. Soon, something would happen that even my mother couldn't deny. Lolo was visibly afraid. He tried to call out to the dog, hoping to silence the animal's haunting howls. But Popoy, our family dog, didn't listen. Instead, Popoy bolted out of the house, still howling in the direction of something unseen. I ran after him, trying to keep up. The dog reached the yard, and I froze as Popoy suddenly stopped, wagging his tail as if greeting someone familiar. Yet there was no one there. My heart raced. It has to be Lola, I thought. Popoy, seeing something none of us could, seemed to be playing with an invisible presence. The very thought sent chills up my spine. On the day of Lola's funeral, we brought Popoy with us to the cemetery. Everything went as expected until the moment the soil began covering the coffin. As the first clumps of dirt hit the wood, Popoy went berserk. He barked and lunged towards the grave, scratching at the dirt as if trying to dig Lola back out. Suddenly, Popoy froze, staring into the distance, his eyes wide with terror. His fur bristled and an agonized howl erupted from him, sending shivers through everyone around. Lolo muttered under his breath, "He sees her." I didn't want to believe it, but deep down, I knew it was true. 3 years ago, my wife had a miscarriage. It was a devastating loss for both of us. She had been 2 months pregnant with our first child. My father had given us money to build a house next to his, so we would have our own space when the baby arrived. I decided to build it myself with the help of 2 close friends. We worked tirelessly, digging foundations and putting up walls. One day, our neighbor Aling Susan came over, warning me not to dig because my wife was pregnant. She told me it was bad luck, that digging was like creating a grave for our child. I laughed it off. "That's just an old superstition," I told her, dismissing her concerns. "It's just work." But she became angry, her face hardening. "You'll regret this," she said. I shrugged it off and continued the work, despite her dire warnings. 5 days later, my wife came to visit me at the site. I noticed blood streaming down her legs. Panicked, I rushed her to the hospital, but it was too late. She had miscarried. We lost our baby before we even had the chance to know it. The doctors told us that she had slipped in the bathroom, but in that moment, all I could think of was ailing Susan's words. Had I caused this? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was responsible. Afterward, my wife and I were consumed by grief. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and she barely left the house. Every time I saw ailing Susan, guilt gnawed at me. I couldn't even look her in the eye. One night, while walking toward our bedroom, I heard something strange. It was the faint sound of a baby crying. It was soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. I stopped in my tracks, my heart pounding in my chest. There were no babies in the house. Where was the sound coming from? It seemed to echo from deep within the walls, like a forgotten memory. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the crying stopped. When I opened the door to our room, I saw my wife fast asleep, but her face was tear-streaked, and it was clear she had been crying in her sleep. The room felt cold, and the silence that followed the mysterious crying was deafening. A few hours later, my wife woke me up, her face pale. She told me she had dreamt of our baby. In the dream, she saw the child crying, reaching out for her but slowly disappearing into the darkness. My blood ran cold as she spoke because it mirrored what I had heard. The baby's cry. It wasn't just in my mind. Had our lost child been trying to reach us, to tell us something? Since then, things have only gotten worse. My wife is pregnant again, and while we're grateful, we can't shake the fear that something might go wrong again. We've been taking extra precautions, avoiding anything that might tempt fate. And now, even the old superstitions seem worth heeding. There's no harm in being careful, right? Even if it's all in our heads, the fear is too real to ignore. I just hope this time we can make it through. She could feel the doorknob turning slowly, its cold metal surface twisting under her hand, as if someone on the other side was pushing against it. But the real question haunting her mind was, who knocked on the door twice? There had been no answer, just the eerie silence, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, Lola's scream pierced the quiet night, making her heart race. Bursting out of the room, she found Lola in the living room, frantically talking on the phone. Her voice was trembling, and it wasn't long before she realized she was speaking to her mother. Lola, her eyes wide with terror, turned to her and said they needed to go to the hospital immediately. Confusion surged through her, but it was quickly replaced by a sinking feeling in her chest. She asked why they needed to go, but Lola wouldn't answer. All she would say was to get ready so they could leave. Her hands shook as she grabbed her jacket, the weight of dread settling in her stomach. In the car, Lola began to cry uncontrollably, but still, she wouldn't say what had happened. Fear gnawed at her insides. Was it Mama? Was it Papa? And why was Lola refusing to explain? The hospital loomed ahead, its sterile walls illuminated under the cold fluorescent lights. As they entered, a man she didn't recognize approached them, leading them wordlessly towards the morgue. The morgue? Her confusion turned to anger as she rounded on Lola, demanding to know what was going on. But before she could get an answer, her mother appeared, tears streaming down her face as she embraced her. It was in that moment she knew the truth. Her father was dead. Her legs felt heavy, refusing to move as the realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Papa was dead, and she hadn't even seen his body yet. Her mother's sobs echoed in her ears as they walked towards the morgue, but every step felt like a battle. She didn't want to see him, didn't want to face the reality of what had happened. When they finally reached the morgue, her worst fears were confirmed. Her father had been killed, a stray bullet to the head, ending his life in an instant. She couldn't help but wonder, was it just coincidence? Or was it connected to her cutting her nails that night? Her grandmother had warned her, forbidden her from cutting her nails at night, saying it would bring misfortune. She hadn't believed her then. But now, with her father lying dead in the morgue, she couldn't shake the feeling that maybe her grandmother had been right. The thought consumed her as they prepared for the funeral. Every night, the image of her father in the morgue haunted her. She couldn't escape the memory, nor the nagging guilt that followed her every waking moment. During the wake, as she stared at her father's coffin, she wondered if he had been the one trying to communicate with her that night at midnight. She had heard the knock but had dismissed it, only to now face this unbearable loss. Death had come too soon for her father, just like it had for her grandfather, who she remembered clinging to life in the hospital. She recalled feeling someone's arms wrapped around her, as though comforting her during her grandfather's final moments, though no one had been there. She didn't know if she truly believed in superstitions, but after what had happened, she couldn't ignore them anymore. The weight of regret was too heavy, and she had no desire to tempt fate again. From that day on, she followed every warning her grandmother gave her, no matter how strange it seemed. What if Papa was right there, trying to reach out to me, she wondered. What if he was the one knocking on my door that night, trying to say goodbye? It was a decision made out of fear, one born from the chilling moments that haunted her every night. She had been careful now, following her grandmother's warnings, ensuring her feet were no longer pointed towards the door when she slept. Ever since that night, when she had felt an unseen force tugging at her feet, the horror had gripped her tightly. The nightmares stopped for a while, but their lingering presence never left her thoughts. Gia could recall one nightmare vividly. In the suffocating darkness of her room, there was an old woman dragging her by her legs, trying to pull her out of the safety of her room. The woman's face, twisted and ancient, haunted her even when she was awake. From that moment, sleep became a battlefield. Each night, her mind raced with fear, wondering if she'd be safe or if the nightmares would return. The fear clung to her like a second skin, and for weeks, she avoided even closing her eyes, terrified of what awaited her in the dream world. But for now, it seemed as though things had calmed down. The nightmares were gone, and she began to breathe a little easier, convincing herself that maybe, just maybe, she was finally safe. Another story emerged, this time from Eunice, whose tale was far more terrifying and unusual. Her cousin Harry, a free-spirited soul, never shied away from laughing in the face of superstitions. They both loved mirrors, something they should have taken more seriously, as they soon learned. It was late on the night of October 31st, 2023, but Eunice never believed in such things until that night. As she brushed her hair, she felt a creeping sensation along her spine. Her reflection, it wasn't right. A subtle change, so small at first that she almost missed it. Her face, which had been calm, started to look different. It wasn't her anymore. The reflection grew angry, distorted with an expression of rage. As she watched in horror, the reflection's movements didn't match hers. Her image in the mirror stood up just a split second after she did. Fear exploded within her, and before she knew it, she was screaming, her voice piercing through the quiet night. Her parents came rushing into the room, finding her trembling, still staring at the mirror. She struggled to explain what had happened. Her mother shook her, trying to calm her down, while her father dragged the cursed mirror out of her room. They laughed it off, saying it was just a bad dream, but Eunice knew better. She avoided mirrors from that day on. A week later, Eunice confided in her cousin Harry about the strange encounter. To her surprise, Harry had his own unsettling story. He too had experienced something strange late at night while standing in front of a mirror. A woman had appeared behind him dressed in white, her face covered in blood. It wasn't a reflection. It was something else, something far more sinister. Harry had seen her once and was sure never to look back into that mirror again. The woman, her bloodied face burned into his memory, was something beyond this world. The experiences of Eunice and Harry paled in comparison to what happened to Christian, who shared his terrifying encounter from years ago. It was a story tied to the folklore of their land, a warning passed down through generations. Christian was young then, only 9. He was defiant, always challenging the old superstitions of his elders. His mother warned him not to point at anything in the dark, especially near the old tamarind tree by their home. The tree was tall and ancient, and at night, fireflies swarmed around it, lighting it up as if it were wrapped in strings of twinkling lights. But his mother believed that pointing at the tree would summon spirits, beings that no human could see. One night, Christian did just that. As the fireflies danced around the tree, he pointed them out to his family, excited by their beauty. His mother scolded him, begging him to stop, but he didn't listen. That night, Christian felt terribly ill. A fever that wouldn't break gripped his small body, causing him to shiver and sweat, despite the intense heat burning him from within. His family took him to the hospital, but nothing seemed to help. The fever would disappear during the day, only to return with a vengeance by nightfall. It was as if something was coming for him, waiting in the darkness, tormenting him when the sun went down. Desperate, his mother called a local healer. The healer claimed that Christian had angered a spirit, something that lived in the tamarind tree. It wasn't just any spirit, but a dark and ancient creature. The healer warned Christian never to point at things in the dark again, especially at trees like the tamarind. They were gateways to the spirit world, and by pointing, Christian had unknowingly invited one of the spirits to follow him. From then on, Christian avoided the tamarind tree and any other trees that glowed with the light of fireflies at night. The memory of the dark figure he saw in his fevered dreams, with its red eyes and towering, hairy form, stayed with him long after the fever broke. He never doubted his mother's warnings again.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new content. Let me know in the comments what you liked, what you didn't, and any constructive feedback you have. Love to hear from you. Your support and input help make future videos even better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.